Welcome back to the Fast Lane. We are live in front of a studio audience. Sanlam Private Wealth. Hello, everybody. The best studio audience on earth. I challenge every other financial institution to find cooler people to be doing this podcast live.
Can't beat that. What a start.
Jeez. John, what a week it's been in the Fast Lane. We've had quite an intense week. We're heading towards another Formula One weekend. We're going to chat briefly about Formula One, local motor racing in South Africa, as well as some of the picks in terms of cars you've driven this week. Of course, it has been fueled by a lot of excitement in the Formula One stable, lots of question marks over Red Bull's head still this week as we go to Melbourne and we go racing there, and a very important guest who's not on camera yet, just so we let our live studio audience know that he's not invisible, but for now he is, because cameras are on you and I. We'll introduce him in a second. Let's just quickly talk about motorsport. What is happening this weekend in terms of Formula One?
Yeah, we go to Melbourne for the first, it's the first street race, and that's going to be really exciting. Obviously, Max is running away with it at the moment. They're the team to beat, even though they're having off-track politics, in terms of who's going to run the team and that sort of thing. And Max's dad getting involved, which is never a good thing. But like I said, everyone's talking about him leaving to go to maybe Mercedes. But no driver, and Iain will agree with this, is going to leave to go from a winning team to a team that's battling at the moment.
Sure. From that as well, we can't forget the fact that our local hero, Brad Binder's on the bike again this weekend. Great positioning for him in terms of the season so far as well.
Yeah, he's lying second in the championship. And I mean, he's just looking lean and he's looking fit. He's married now and maybe he's a little bit more organized at home.
Just explain that to me. When you're married, you're not supposed to lose weight. You're married, and then that's it.
Well,
you're done. You put on the kilos.
Well, she's surely a keeper because, he's lying second in the championship. And, he's the only other rider outside of Ducati on a different bike, on the KTM bike, to be in second place. But, those guys are on the limit all the time. It's quite something to watch. Speeds of up to 360 kilometers an hour on two wheels. They flick-flack off the bikes. They get up, run back to the pits, get back on the bike. It's incredible. They're really fit athletes, these guys.
Looking back at last weekend, we popped into the Nationals. You were in that setup. You were in that setup just recently, racing those cars. And actually, to the degree where you were headhunted to go and race internationally. Looking back, walking through the pits at a local national race, do you still feel inclined to want to hop in those cars and race?
It's like happy feet. I start to tap dance when I walk around these cars. And they're very expensive cars, but purposely built, to go fast.
How much do they go for? Let's talk money.
Look, for people that can relate, a Polo, it looks like a Polo GTI.
300,000. Second hand.
No.
We buy cars.
No. 3 million rand.
I'm
3 million rand Polo. And out of the 3,000 parts, probably only 4 are from a Polo. So,
sure. Okay.
Yeah, and
that sounds like a Cape Town car.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only 3 or 4 genuine Polo parts.
Sounds like some of those cars we see at big wings and spats. But these cars are extremely built, extremely fast and purposely built. Sure. So and then we saw the GT cars, and I always find it fascinating, because people think that local racing, you're not going to see Lamborghinis, Ferrari, Porsches. Sure. But I took Ryan for the first time to go and see, and we've got a strong field of 20 cars of some of the most expensive cars that are competing currently in the World Series. Those Lamborghinis, you're looking at probably between 7 and 10 million rand vehicles that these guys are racing.
What does the season cost? Because now we've got privateers. So these are individuals with high net worth individuals that are out there racing, as a hobby, racing these 7 million rand vehicles around the track.
Yeah, they call them gentleman races. So we're lucky as professional racers. No, you won't. I get invited to race with these gentleman races. So it's opened up opportunity for young guys that necessarily can't afford it because it is a very expensive sport. Sure. Especially coming from South Africa, it's very difficult to get funding to compete. We don't sell a lot of cars here for the manufacturers, so they prefer to take a German or a Spanish driver or rider. But I believe we've got some of the best riders and drivers in the world. We see it through karting coming through, world karting champs. So, so a lot of these guys have their own personal businesses, which they fund these vehicles through, or some of them just, it's a hobby. It's a round of drinks on a Friday night for them.
It's a hell of a round of drinks. Now, our important guest, I want to bring him on as a matter of urgency, because this gentleman, we've had some of the big names in Formula One on this podcast with us. Some great local names, Janelle de Villiers, local motor racing enthusiasts, and the likes. But this gentleman in particular, because with the kind of year and 2 years we've had, 3 years since the pandemic and since lockdown, he's had a massive focus on bringing investment back to South Africa in the form of sport, and specifically open wheel motor racing. We haven't seen it in South Africa since many a moon. And he's been very passionate about bringing that back to South Africa. But just to give you a bit of history as to who this gentleman is, of course, we'll take you back to the 90s, and I'm sure even then he could possibly go back a little bit further than that, with a legacy left by his father, who was himself a great and phenomenal pioneer of South African athletes and sport in South Africa. I'm often reminded that when I see him and when I speak to him, and how that's obviously been inherited by him and his family, and he's taken the reins not only to bring motorsport here, but also an illustrious career that saw him head up Laurier Sport for Good as a part of the Richmond board. And ladies and gents, he joins us on the fast lane. Our live studio audience, please welcome Mr. Iain Banner. Iain, I've welcomed you twice and you haven't said a word. Let's take you back to the very beginning. A very good place to start, and Richmond and motorsport.
Sure.
Did you ever think you'd be on the stage in 2024 in front of a group of beautiful people like this, talking about what you've done over the last 2 years, never mind the last 25 years?
I've never really thought it important to talk about what I do, but I'm finding more and more people are interested.
Sure.
So it's a delight to share stories, and as we get a bit older, I've learned it's more important to tell people what not to do than what to do, but I'd love to share some of those stories, starting, as you say, so I started in a sports marketing company, Sports International. I was in business with Gary Player for 7 years, and then I joined a client, Johan Rupert, working at Richmond, and had the sponsorship portfolio for the group companies, which was, in those days, bad old tobacco plus luxury goods.
Sure.
And one of the elements of the tobacco strategy was Rothman sponsoring the Williams team. Ooh. And I took over tragically just after Ayrton Senna died in our car. And in joining, got to know the team, and there was a youngster called David Coulthard who was just trying to challenge Johnny Herbert for the drive, and he managed finally to push Johnny out the car. And he joined the 1996 world champion, Damien Hill. Damon won in 96 the world championship. So that was fascinating. We had characters like Ron Dennis, at McLaren, Eddie Jordan, great friend with Jordan Racing, a great promoter. And then, of course, Frank Williams,
sure,
who did such an incredible job with Williams in those days. Patrick Head was the technical director. And we enjoyed a lot of success. And, of course, I got the benefit to go to a lot of races.
Absolutely. And responsible for some serious budgets. I mean, we all remember, I'm sure there's many of us that remember back in the day, the old Peter Stuyvesant Spectacular brings Tina Turner to South Africa. Never came to Cape Town. Sun City got it up. Did you come to Cape Town?
Tina, we brought her here. I put that strategy together for Peter Stuyvesant. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was around music.
100%. And tobacco had big budgets then. And big
big
budgets meant they could get the big stars at all the Formula Ones, which means that somebody had to deal with some of these big name celebrities. And we know who that person is.
I'll share one little story taking Sly Stallone. People love to know about Sly and what he did, and he wanted to make an open wheel racing movie. Yeah. So we introduced him to Bernie Eccleston, and he came with us. We flew over to Monza, and Bernie very kindly gave us his chopper, and we flew in. And in those days, you could remove the seat, John, from the Formula One car, which was incredible.
Yes.
It's totally molded, but you could actually take it out. So I called Patrick and I said, Patrick, get the seat out of. In those days, you used to have you had the two cars plus a spare car.
Yeah.
Take the seat out, please. And it was actually eventually taken out of David Coulthard's car. And then we got him into the kit, into the driving gear, and we actually put him in the car, in the pits. And Brigitte Nielsen, his ex-wife, and they like Oil and Water, was in the pit lane next door. And the paparazzi in Monza were going absolutely bonkers, the Italians, you can imagine. So that was quite a moment. And it actually was sort of tied in. So eventually that movie didn't get made on Formula One. It got made on open wheel racing, IndyCar racing. Yeah. It's called Driven.
Absolutely.
You remember?
Great movie.
And, it was not one of his greatest, but it was a hit. Yeah. It was fun. It was great. And he was going on to make Judge Dredd at the time. Sure. And so there's a story in that because the Slytech Panerai watch came out of that. Yes. I don't think we have time for that, but that's kind of
And
cool.
That's another brand that you were instrumental in taking to the market. It's a luxury watch brand called Panerai.
Can I correct you? Johan deserves 100% of the credit.
Sure. Yeah.
Together with Franco Cologni, who was the chairman of Cartier at the time.
Yeah.
And it's the two of them. I was on the fringes of that deal. But I know the insights.
Okay, gotcha. So from that, you and Johan, talk quickly about the mindset going into Laurier Sport for Good.
Sure.
Because where that was born out of and how that came to be.
So Johan was the one who had the idea of a global sports awards, the Oscars of world sport.
Sure.
And this has happened over a period of time, but I looked at it and I said, I don't think it'll work on its own. But it's a single stake in the ground. You can push a single stake over rather easily. But if we could put purpose at the center, it was an iterative process. That all sounds very sensible today because people know about, things around purpose. In those days, it was very new.
Sure.
But I thought if we have a charity and we have an academy of legendary sportsmen and women acting as our collegiate, as our electoral college,
Got you.
then we would have athletes judging athletes, and we could have those athletes supporting what's today sport for good. A tripod, much stronger. Still, you're up against FIFA, you're up against the IOC, you're up against all the big sports federations. Who are we? We newcomers on the scene. So,
Sure.
However, I was crazy enough because I had the task of having to take the idea and make it happen, to con 43 of the greatest names in world sport to come on board for no money. Got their name, their likeness, their image. Eventually got Michael Jordan after 2 years. And today there's over 300 of the greatest athletes in the world that support Laureus. The awards are on the 22nd of April in Madrid, which will be the 24th edition of it.
Sure.
And then my passion, my baby, Sport for Good. I'm very proud to say we've helped about 7 million children. We've raised over 5 billion rand since we started.
Sure. Ladies and gents.
That's amazing.
And we have 300 projects around the world that we support. And 26 of those projects are in South Africa. And they're some of the standouts, some of the great work around Sport for Good. Because it's not about playing sport. It's about playing sport, but it's not about excellence.
Sure.
It's about trusted environments where you can work with children to address social issues in communities.
Beautiful.
There are so many challenges.
Yeah.
And I could spend hours telling you these remarkable stories about individuals who have given up their lives to change communities. It's happening in a big way, and it's happening in this country too. So let's not forget that.
Absolutely. Now you spoke, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head, and I want to wrap with Laureus with this, because you mentioned individuals that have given themselves for the sake of sport. There's one individual who you convinced, right, to join you in Monaco. Very specially was the seal of approval that I think really had the world's attention going. This is these guys are serious about changing the way that we feel and embrace sport.
Yes.
Sport for Good needed to be Sport for Good if it had the ultimate ambassador, and you convinced the world's ultimate ambassador.
Again, I need to give credence to Johan for
Sure,
that.
okay.
But we were working as a team, and basically we had our first awards in May 2000, the 21st of May 2000, and it had to be a wow.
Yeah.
We had to really show to these athletes who were encouraged to join us that this was for real. And we had a founding meeting of the World Sports Academy. We had the likes of Sugar Ray Leonard and Sebastian Coe and Viv Richards and Kapil Dev, Mornay Duplessis, Gary Player, etc., Ian Botham,
Sure.
etc., Martina Navratilova, I could rattle on. And they were in Monaco with us. And we had our founding meeting, and we read out the Constitution, and we confirmed that the company, if it made profits, it would be for the benefit of the Sport for Good Foundation.
Sure.
And at 10:25, there were only Johan, myself, and a gentleman called Dieter Zetscher, who was the president of Mercedes-Benz, in the room, plus the sports people, and Johan left the room quietly, and at 10:30 I went to the door and I said, we've got a little surprise for you, and opened the door, and the great Nelson Mandela walked in. And that was a defining moment. And he literally said, you are my kings and my queens. It would be my honor to polish your shoes. And they all fainted just about. And then I had the unique privilege of introducing all of these great people to him. And it was that night at the awards that he said, sport has the power to change the world. It can unite nations in a way that little else does. It's more effective in bringing about change than governments will ever be. Remember, he was sitting president. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport has the power to change the world. And that stuck. And I remember sitting with Gianni Mello from Gazzetta dello Sport. He's one of the top editors of sport in the world. Gazette is huge. He said, Ian, this is the defining moment. And I think that blessed us. It really did.
Sure.
It was not easy doing this. We were fighting against the odds. It was, anyway, fortunately, it's happened.
Fast track life as we know it to a few years back, you and I sitting over a little quiet Chardonnay under an oak tree somewhere, you saying, I've got this idea, I've got this phenomenal idea, I want to bounce it off you. And so far, I'll tell you what the kind of general response is once you've given me your input on it. And you said, I want to bring open wheel racing back to South Africa. And in particular, I've got my eye on this growing sport and this growing, certainly this growing discipline within it called Formula E. And I said, Iain, what are you doing? And you said, don't join the masses. And I said, I'm not. I'm going to support you on this. I'm going to get behind you on this, and let's make the impossible possible, because that was the prognosis, wasn't it? From those that you chatted to, and I'm not talking about the run-of-the-mill mate I'm talking about those in the know that looked at it and said, Iain, impossible.
Yes. By the way, it was a Chenin Blanc. It was Chris Alheit's Cartology, which I can recommend to all of you. So it's true, we were there talking about it, and I can tell you honestly that, and it's not just me, it's a team, but somebody has to be, the Italians have a great word, pazzi, it means crazy. Somebody has to be crazy enough to push to do this stuff. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. I was the pazzi in this instance, and mad because it's a lot of money, it's a lot of risk, it's impossible to do, etc. But I always said to the team, guys and girls, this will never happen on its own. Like I'd learned from Glorious, we've got to put purpose at the center, as you touched on. So we've created Go Green Africa. Think of it as a tabletop. We have 4 legs. Africa's Green Economy Summit. Sanlam were our partners at this year's edition.
Wow.
Carl, I don't know if Carl's here, Rootman and the team. And the first deal that got announced by Afrexim Bank, $600 million. That's 12 billion rand. It happened there at Ages. And we had 32 pitches from companies. We had 40 institutions. So outside of the plenary session, which was most interesting, and something happened yesterday which is mind-blowing, I won't get into that, but there's deals in the hopper right now. So that's about creating jobs. It's about pushing into the green economy, leaning into the green economy, making it reality. That's one leg. I have manifested that'll become the mining Indaba of the green economy.
Got you.
There's absolutely every reason for it to be that. Secondly, we have a skills development program called Formula Student Africa. What is that? We have 9 universities and TVET colleges on board. Warwick in the UK, who's Professor of Engineering, is a battery technologist, advises Jaguar and Porsche. You'd be interested, John, to know that. He's amazing. Their race team, they came, they loved what they saw here. Together with now Coventry, they deliver lectures and classes to those college graduates, etc., who's studying engineering. So we hope to graduate, that 900 students over the next 3 years will be able to build EV cars, data scientists, etc. So it's the whole system around creating an EV car. How do you do it? How do you build it, etc. I don't see anybody else worrying about the fact that our automotive industry has to transform significantly. So we're trying to do our bit there. Well, our third leg is the Electric Festival, which you know, which is going to expand. It's all about showcasing things, e-cars, bicycles, one-wheeler scooters, plus charging solutions. I took a bullet in the head because we had Eskom as a partner. And of course, everybody's like, Eskom, you can't even switch the lights on. How are you going to power the cars?
I remember that.
I understand that. But within Eskom, it's not all bad news. There's a phenomenal division which is dealing with microgrid technology. That's about powering off the grid, off-grid solutions. We showcased that at our Electric Festival. Nick Singh heads that up. It's happening, that division, in a big way. We're helping to propel that and move it forward. One of those units autonomously charges or powers 55 residences in the Northern Cape who were off-grid. Cost less than 3.1 million rand versus on-grid solutions, 327 million rand. So, I mean, we need off-grid solutions. So there it is. So we have that. And then finally, we have our electric vehicle road trip, which is a fun initiative with you guys, other social media people, driving in the electric cars, showcasing, dealing with range anxiety, showing what's possible with these amazing cars, carrying a green baton representing green energy in townships, in towns, in cities, picking up heroes, putting them in the car with the green baton, and visiting, communicating, spreading the love, showcasing what EV is all about. Once you drive, for those of you who haven't, I promise you, once you drive an EV, you ain't going back. You might want to put a little sound from your Ferrari or whatever, that's fine. You can do that. Yeah. It's an option, but I promise you it's an altogether ethereal experience. Incredible. I bought a little i3 5 years ago. It is the most fun car I've ever had. I love it. I've had other magnificent vehicles, machines that cost a lot more.
Sure.
This is the one, I'm telling you, because it's a different experience. The visibility, the turning circle, the torque, the fun, the renewable elements of it. It's built out of renewable stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the sustainability element. So that was the total creation. And off that, we race.
Sure.
We celebrate. So each year, the race is intended to be a celebration. Now, when's it coming back? Hopefully, Feb next year. I'm busy in a deal right now. We've got half the money together. The other half was there, and then we got busy as a government with stuff maybe we should or shouldn't have been busy with, and suddenly that's gone away. But we got to fill that gap. And what sustains me is the platform we've created is happening as we speak right now. And that is 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
So Sanlam, for example, now, rather than just being involved with us in a one-off, we can do a journey together throughout the year, making a difference to the continent of Africa. All of us, in my view, have a responsibility to do that.
I love that. Ladies and gents, Sanlam doing their work. Now, Iain, I want to bring you in here very quickly because this is obviously about motoring as well. You did have one car that I was quite sad with that you got rid of, the little Fiat 500 of yours.
My Cinquecento.
But I've got a beautiful little Fiat 500 story that includes a Mr. John Williams over there who recently bought himself a very, very beautiful limited edition, one of only a handful of them in South Africa, the Fiat 500 Abarth, right?
Ooh, beautiful.
The most beautiful black vehicle, paddle shift gears, the most incredible vehicle ever that went only 30 kilometers before exploding on the highway.
I actually thought
True
the car
story.
was on fire.
Nothing to do with the driver.
Well, no. I was quite excited driving through the back of Durbanville, through the wine farms, having a nice, pleasant drive to look in my rear mirror to realize the car I thought was actually on fire. White smoke coming out the back, and I literally driven it from the guy I just bought it from. It's got all the books, all the service history on this car, serviced at Ferrari. I'm so excited.
wow.
I phoned Ryan to say, listen, I think the car's on fire. I'm just going to push it off the hill into there's a dam at the bottom and let it cool off, you know.
But if anyone's looking for a Fiat at a good price, we've got one. You just need to move it from Durbanville Hills Winery to your place.
Never been driven hard, lady owner.
Lady owner since new.
That little, I brought a 1969 Fiat 500L. It had been restored in Italy. It came, I mentioned Gazzetta dello Sport earlier. The spare hubcaps were wrapped in 1969 Gazzetta newspaper. I'm not joking. It was the original. So it had been, the car had been restored, repainted. And I kept it for many years, and then you've got children and other cars arrive, and suddenly your garage, and you've got it's just too much tin, and I made the mistake of selling it. I really regret that. I wish it was the other car I had right now. And it sits in Pretoria in a pretty special collection.
Oh, man.
So.
Well, listen, this has been an incredible opportunity to touch base with you, Iain. It's lovely seeing you, my friend. And congratulations on another first in the film of a cycle tour with all 4 generations of Banners a week and a bit ago. Well done.
Thank you. As my dad will tell you, he's only 90. So, I mean,
it's the spring chicken.
Many to come.
Plenty of mileage left there. Please like and subscribe and give us a follow. I must say a huge thanks to our live studio audience at Sanlam Private Wealth. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of the live studio audience. To our guest, Iain Banner, thank you, sir. I look forward to Formula E in Cape Town next week. John, that's a wrap from us. We're out of here. We're off to go and follow Iain in his electric vehicle. He's the only one with charge. He seems to have friends at Eskom that keep the lights on. More stages than the Tour de France, I'll tell you what. Guys, like, subscribe. We'll be back soon with another podcast. Take care.